It was the end of school, and the kids were ready to head out with my parents for a few weeks. After that, they went to visit Millie's parents in Florida and enjoyed a short trip to Disney World. For the 8 and 9-year-olds, it was like heaven, and when their devoted grandparents took care of them, it was like opening up Fort Knox. We knew that when those two returned home, they would have more Disney merchandise than you could imagine. I laughed at the thought. I sat on the back deck sipping my favorite Southern comfort on ice. It had been a good week, but busier than usual. It was a lovely, carefree evening, unusual for early June, as our schools were out for the summer. We had a fun dinner of hamburgers with all the fixings, and I could smell the smell of the grill's dying heat and the citronella repelling the mosquitoes, burly corn colo and cokes for the kids. We learned about my parents' plans for the next 3 weeks in their Virginia Beach home. They were going to Busch Gardens in Williamsburg, with a stop in Jamestown, to teach the kids a little bit about history. Knowing that we would have 5 weeks together, something we had not experienced since James was born, Millie and I grinned at each other. The kids were spending their last night at home before their father left early, and I could hear their chattering through the open window above my head as Mom and Millie cleaned the kitchen. "Millie, what will you and Ellis do without your kids after all these weeks of being prickly? As mothers do, we will undoubtedly get back together. We will make love in every room in this house multiple times and deepen our affectionate bond." I don't know if Millie realized I could hear her, but her words touched me right away, making my pants tighten. Wow, I didn't anticipate that. But if I were still your age and had this much free time with Ella, my mom said. My mom, Millie, and Sarah laughed, so that's the plan. I owe it to Ellis, who is a good man, and I need to make up for my lack of fidelity in the bedroom. I adore him so much. We are going to Myrtle Beach for a week over the 4th of July, which will be fun. We used to go there when we first got married, and I miss those days so much. As Millie put it, Ellis Sr. and I adored Myrtle Beach many years ago when all the little beaches were located there. Ocean Drive Crescent, Tillman Cherry Grove was there before they combined into one city, and it became so commercial, Mom told her. Now, we love the community in Virginia Beach where we live. It's quiet near the beach and has 2 pools. The residents are primarily adults, but our 2 neighbors have children of your child's age, so they will be around to play with the kids while they visit. We might take the whole family to Busch Gardens, which will either be a huge hit or a colossal bust. Mom said the dishes rattled as they loaded the dishwasher and finished up. It was suddenly quiet. My mind went back to Millie's confession to Mom. I thought our love life was perfect. We were a busy family. The only roadblock was the kids. They were always there for the most part, so not much happened spontaneously anymore. We were relegated to late-night fun time, and many nights our energy was sapped, and we would end up playing a little, then cuddling and falling asleep. I will say that I have sensed less bedroom and enthusiasm from Millie over the last 6 months or so. I know her promotion earlier this year has put more of a strain on her, mentally, so that may be part of it. I have also noticed her lack of interest in me and what I was doing. She used to take a genuine interest in my business and activities, but not so much anymore. I went inside for a refill. I saw Mom and Millie sitting together in the living room. I slipped into the shadows watching them. Mom was whispering to Millie. I sensed it was a serious discussion when I saw Millie wipe her cheeks with a tissue. My God, she was crying. What was the matter? Just then, Dad walked in all filled up, ready to roll. Mom heard Dad and came into the kitchen, and Millie disappeared. Her eyes seemed sad, confusing me. What had she and Millie been talking about that could have changed her mood so quickly? A little later, Millie reappeared and looked fine. Her makeup had been removed, revealing her beautiful face. She didn't look at me, which disturbed me since I felt like something strange was happening and my dad and I were being left out. Millie and my parents had always been open and discussed all issues, whatever they were, so Mom and Millie behaved strangely. How about a game or two of Scrap? Millie suggested. Dad flinched, not liking Scrabble. He always lost. I agreed. The women got out some snacks. I'm good. And the game we set up on the kitchen table using the Lazy Susan in the middle. The game went well. The competition was fierce. Dad was leading and all smiles. Mom was fighting back, challenging Dad's words. I was holding my own. But Millie, an expert player, was last. She was not focused on the game. She was not her bubbly self, but quieter. She barely looked at me at all. It was clear to me something was bothering her. We played 2 games. Dad won one and Mom won the other. Dad and I made a drink and relaxed on the deck as the girls cleaned up. Son Millie seemed distracted. "Is everything okay with you guys?" he asked. I looked at him. "Dad, do you know anything?" "No, son. But she hasn't been herself since I left to get gas. What happened?" he pointed out. "I have no idea. I was out here relaxing. Mom and Millie were cleaning the kitchen and I heard them chatting about what Millie and I would do while the kids were gone. Millie piped up that we would reconnect, make love in every room a few times and take a trip to Myrtle Beach. Then a little later I came in for a refill, and Mom and Millie were sitting on the sofa in the living room whispering to each other. Millie was crying. After that, Mom had an odd look on her face. Millie would not look at me and hasn't said 10 words to me other than during the games." "What did you do?" "My dad accused me. I have done nothing. I have no idea what is going on. Maybe you should asked Mom. I stated we sat silently for a while, then want a refill. I asked. I took his glass and went inside. The women were nowhere around. I looked in our bedroom, not there. I walked down the hall to the guest room. I heard whispering as I approached. The door was cracked, and I heard Millie softly sobbing. Then I heard Mom. "What will I do?" Millie asked as much as I wanted to hear what was next. I quickly moved away and made a strong drink for Dad and me. I walked out handing Dad his drink, and then walked to the edge of the deck. I looked up into the night sky. It was clear, and I could see millions of stars twinkling. I felt a hand on my shoulder while I was thinking deeply about what was happening, and was completely perplexed. When I looked back, my dad was standing there saying, "Son, something has happened with Millie. I don't know what it is, but I hope it's not too bad. You have a month to try to get over it, and I know you will work hard, Dad. I don't know what could be as sad as she is right now, and I'm afraid that she might be sick and hasn't told me." This is what Dad told me when I asked. "Let me tell you something about your mother and me that you may not know, Ellis. We haven't talked about this in over 39 years, but this might be helpful if what I believe happened when you were 6 years old and started school was your mother's decision to go to work. That way, she could save money for our retirement and take care of her daily needs. She found a job teaching history in high school, and we made it work to get you everywhere you needed. Over the next 2 years, she advanced to become the head of the humanities department, which required her to attend several highway conferences and after-school meetings in order to develop the curriculum. This caused tension in our relationship as she became more focused on her work than me. We fought about it, and I realized there might be more to it than just the job. I wasn't sure what it was, but over a few months, I had seen changes. Most of them were little things, but they were all annoying. For example, she would call me at the last minute for me to pick you up, and then she would come home a couple of hours later, or she would have to hold a teacher workshop on a Saturday afternoon. Hence, I did something with you. You were my little man. I loved doing things with you, so I wasn't upset. It was more her attitude toward me that had changed. I didn't understand it. I was sure she didn't realize how much she had changed on the Saturday before your 11th birthday, before hunting season. I took you to the Bass Pro Shop at the mall to find you a Browning 410 shotgun. I wanted to take you hunting and teach you about the outdoors. We bought your first shotgun and set up hunting and shooting lessons for you. It was nearly lunchtime. Hence, we decided to go to the food court in the mall. We headed that way. As we walked through the parking lot, I thought I saw your mom's car parked over a few rows. So I stopped to make sure it was her. She was in the car with someone else. So at first, I thought I was mistaken. But no, I was right. She opened the door, and a man who I didn't know but who was young and attractive stepped out. I took hold of your hand, and we hurried into the mall, blending in with the other patrons. I stopped and turned to look back, and I saw the woman and the man giggling and bumping into each other. Ellis, it became obvious. To me, they were more than just friends. They were acting like lovers. I was immediately devastated, unable to control my anger, which shot up to 30 on a scale of 10. Since we were in a public place and I owed you this day, I quickly decided we would go to the food court and eat. I wasn't hungry, but I owed it to you, so I didn't ruin it for you. We placed our order and waited for our food, and when I saw them again, they had stopped at the food court. The man bent down to give your mother a kiss, which nearly made me burst out of control. He went to get pizza, and when our order was finished, I went over to check him out. He was the same age as me, but younger. I introduced myself and we spoke, and he identified himself as Anthony Thomas, the assistant principal at your mother's school, who had been there for 4 months. After his food arrived, he said goodbye. and I watched as he met Millie at a store across the street, which she had never visited before. As far as I could tell, Millie was carrying a Victoria's Secret shopping bag, so I knew this was a serious affair. I turned my attention back to you, and as we were leaving after finishing our lunch, I noticed your mom and him kissing passionately. I wanted to run over to them and shoot them, but I couldn't because you were with me. Instead, we got into the truck and drove away before I did something from which I would never be able to recover. You went to the park with your friends after you got home, and I sat drinking beer and contemplating what to do. I knew that I would confront your mom when she got home, and I didn't care if I had proof. I knew what I had seen, and that was enough for me. I made one very nervous move. I went into the laundry hamper and looked through her panties from the previous week, putting them in a paper bag. I washed everything else. I took a few beers and sat on the front steps waiting for your mom. I wanted to confront her immediately because I knew that something was wrong. You had seen your mom with Anthony and asked me who he was. I told her that he was Mr. Thomas, the assistant principal at your mom's school. About an hour later, your mom arrived, and while I waited for her, I lined up the 5 empty beer cans I had drunk on the steps. When your mom came, she asked, "Ellis, what are you doing on the front steps? You are drinking a lot of beer. Where is Ellis?" I remained silent, feeling angry, but instead I took a deep breath and asked, "How did your session go today?" I was breathing fire when I spoke, and I was staring down at her with laser eyes that dug into her nervousness. "Did you leave your Victoria's Secret bag in the car or somewhere else?" I asked. In a firm but calm voice, I was surprised I could keep it together. The shocked look on her face was beautiful. I had her and Sarah knew it. She instantly collapsed and slumped to the porch deck and started to sob. I left her there, turned, and walked into the house. I returned to the porch with a suitcase full of her clothes and a cosmetic case. I sat them in front of her. "You will probably need these when you move in with Anthony, your boyfriend." I stated firmly, but showed no emotions. I turned and walked back into the house and locked the door. Her key would not work now since, while I had waited for her to arrive home, I changed the locks. Sarah tried to unlock the door, but couldn't she banged on the door. "Ellis, please let me in." I walked to the door and hooked the chain. I opened the door too and said, "Sarah, you no longer live here. You have a lover now, and from what we saw, you love him more than Junior and I do. So go to him, Ellis, and I will be just fine without you." I closed the door. I heard her fall back against the door and slide down to the porch, sobbing loudly. I walked to the back of the house, trying not to hear her. Finally, I listened to her car start and she left. I did not know where she went, but I had an idea.